It is a healthy, God-honoring home that is the foundational pillar upon which a healthy society is built. We thank God for church. We thank God for school. But the fundamental space for the forming of attitudes and the shaping of appetites is the home. So do you have a godly home? Is Jesus Christ honored in your home? You see, friends, as Christians, it is important that we lean upon the principles of God's word as we seek to govern and guide the shaping of our homes. We must never forget that it is the scriptures, not society, that determines the standard for how husbands and wives, parents and children and other relatives of the family ought to live and interact. And I can't help but wonder if it is because Christian families have walked away from God's word and the teachings thereof, why we experience so much brokenness in our own homes. We have to understand that God-fearing homes and homes driven to serve Jesus Christ, they don't happen by accident. They don't just come about. They are deliberately formed and fashioned. And Joshua says that holy and godly homes begin first of all with a humble reverence for God. Listen, a godly home begins when parents and children and members of the household are drawn into the truth that the God of the Bible is not some distant cosmic grandfather you only visit once a week, but that he's closer than the very breath that you breathe. A godly home begins when people understand that God's word is not just a book of stories, but it is God-breathed, and it is profitable for instructing and inspiring and guiding people into life and godliness, shaping Christian character, informing choices, and guiding decisions. The family that does not fear God will never serve God. The home that does not reverence God's principles for marriage and does not fearfully acknowledge Christ's authority over the family will never be a holy and a godly biblical home. I want you to notice in the reading that in order to deepen the people's fear of God, Joshua reminded them of all that God did for them and the journey that he accompanied them on and what he took them through. I thought to myself that maybe it is time that we sit with our family members and plot the journey of God's grace to us and remind each one of our family members that we have what we do and are what we are, not necessarily only because of our abilities and capacities, but more so because of God's faithfulness and God's favor. I believe that some parents need to sit with their children, remind them that, look, this home in which we live and never had the monies to bring together to pay for it, but somehow by virtue of my serving God, God came through for me in miraculous ways that are beyond my understanding. We need to revisit how God has journeyed with us and help our family members to understand that things not just come so, they came as a result of the goodness, the grace, and the mercy of God. That is how our children begin to fear God. You see, my friends, the things of the Christian faith, they are not caught, they are taught. Attending church once or twice a week is not what makes for a Christian home. Sitting together and watching service doesn't mean that my family is really living for Christ. there's more that is involved in being a godly family than just being a church family. Now, while a godly family goes to church, that is not the real secret behind their godliness. So what is a godly family built around? Joshua shows us some things here. Firstly, a godly family and a godly home is built around a life of surrender. A godly home will organize its time so that the things of God get more attention and more service than anything else. A godly home requires a life of stewardship. Now, there are some families who at one time served the Lord, but they have gone back to serving the gods of the world. There was a day when the whole family lived for God, but now they live for other things. Creating a godly family doesn't happen overnight. It is a continual, committed effort on the part of the entire family to be what God calls them to be until He calls them home.